Shawn, it's awesome to have a chance to sit here and chat with you. I guess this one's not a real fireside chat, and it's a bit chilly, but no, it's not often that I get to sit down with another entrepreneur in the space who one is a serial entrepreneur with numerous startup history, but has gone through and operated and grown an MSP and taken that MSP to exit, and then had the opportunity to see it through more exits after that. It's a relatively unique story. So super excited to have a chance to connect today and talk through some things. And I know our audience loves tuning into these fireside chats and, to get some of those great golden nuggets out there. And, given your history, wanted to start today off with talking about efficient operations. It's no secret that in order to build a successful MSP, to drive and grow a business, to hopefully eventually see a fortuitous exit event one day, you need to hone in on the, efficiency and effectiveness of your operations. So can you talk us through a little bit about what things you implemented in your MSP when it came to streamlining and just, solidifying the operation itself?
Yeah, 100%. No, it's great. It's great to connect here and do this fireside chat. And I tried to get a fire going, but the fireman came over and told me to put it out. So sorry about that. But here we are. And I think it's funny when you say that, it actually brings me back to a chat we had in the past. And you asked me, you're like, how do you reconcile your Microsoft licensing? And at the time, we were probably doing like $200K a month in Microsoft licensing, and and there's all these prorations and all these things. And I told you, I'm like, straight up, we do it simply. Yeah. I said, what we do is we just look at the changes that happened over the month and we update them for the next month's bill, and we eat the proration.
Yeah.
And I think I remember telling you the cost of eating it is cheaper than the cost of the admin work to bill for it.
Yeah.
And so my principles have always been figure out how to simplify it and then figure out what matters as well. So those two things, if you can get clear on those two things, your problem typically just goes away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you need data, and then you need to just simplify from there. And then from there you can make a really good business decision. Because the thing is, every decision that you make that complicates something a little bit more, every time you make one of those, they compound. Right? And so over the course of our almost 9-year company history and before we got acquired, every decision we made to complicate just made everything more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And you really need to be aware of that as a business owner. And I think the thing is that technical people are super analytical and they want everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there's a part of business, it's a little bit of an art form where you need to say, no, I'm actually willing to eat that cost, because one, it makes it simpler for my client. They're happier. They don't have to be like, is that proration right every month? And then it saves us money, actually.
Yeah.
Right. And so I could bill it and it could cost me more than it, and then I get to bill, and my margin's 20% because we were direct tier 1 CSP at the time. If I'm billing an extra $1,000 and it's costing me $500 in the meantime, I'm losing $300.
Yeah.
Right. So you do the math. And so that's always been my kind of number 1 and 2 rules.
Yeah, I think, you've really hit on something important just in general with anything in business. For one, I think you hit the nail on the head that the average MSP owner, technical person, typically stumbled into business because they just was tired of crawling under a desk for somebody else to make them money and stuff.
Great at that. They're great at the tech stuff.
Right, right. And because of that, because they're so technical, they are perfectionists and they want everything perfect and they just want to handle things. But the reality in business is a lot of times you have to abide by the ready, fire, aim mentality, and things aren't going to be perfect. And you have to look at things of what is the trade-off and understanding your true cost of ownership, return on investment, and all of those things. And to your point, it may not make sense to bury 10 hours into automating something that really only takes 15 seconds, or maybe it is a few minutes, but it only happens once a month type of thing, right? And so always looking at what that trade-off is. And for me, even looking all the way down, I know I talk to a lot of MSP owners, and they'll say like, hey, I'm so busy, I don't know, I have no time to grow my business, I have no time to do this. And we start digging in and looking at what they're doing. It's, well, you're still quoting everything for every client. You're still procuring everything for every client. You're, managing all of the techs and their calendars, and you're doing dispatch almost, and you're doing all these things. Yes, I'm sure as the owner and as the head of the company, you're exceptional at doing all of those things. But do every one of those things need to be perfect? Or what's the time savings and value to your company in offloading those to someone else who may screw it up the first several times, let's be real, and may not be as fast at you, but over time they will hone that skill, they'll get better at it, and you've now just been alleviated. But I like that from a leadership standpoint, from a business management, and then overall on the operations side. That's huge.
And that plays such a part of the business, right? So if you're a leader who can't let go and you can't enable your people to learn and make mistakes and figure it out and create their own way, even if it's not yours, you're going to end up with staff that are okay with that. And those are people that are not super motivated, not super efficient. They're not top in the industry. The people that want autonomy and they want to be able to build something and feel like they made a difference, they would come to my company.
Yeah.
You'd lose them because you were just micromanaging them.
Yeah.
And you weren't getting out of their way. There's a really great book out there. It's not in the MSP space. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. A great book. Super easy to understand.
Fellow Canadian too.
Fellow Canadian. Check out that book. Super good information there.
Yeah, I mean, you keep hitting on things, and we're going to be doing this amazing journey through this chat here because, there's this, I'll say budding, it's not so budding anymore, but concept and term of intrapreneurship, right? And it's people that may necessarily not want to start their own business, not want to run the business, not take all the risk, have all the responsibility, but want that opportunity to innovate and take ownership and have accountability and make things happen, right? And when you look at one of the top reasons that any employee leaves an organization, it becomes engagement and empowerment, right? And if as a business leader and as a business owner, you really struggle with delegation and handing things off and letting people truly own them without micromanagement, without being so hands-on, without muddying yourself in the trenches with everything that happens, those people quickly don't feel empowered, they don't feel trusted, and it's tough for them to be engaged in that, right? Sure. Because they feel like they're on eggshells all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing too is that, techs start a business and they hire the cheapest people they can find, and then they have to micromanage them to train them, and you get all these problems, right? I actually, as a business owner, never mind MSP, it doesn't matter what business I'm in, I want to be the person who knows the least technically, right? I want to hire the people that know all the tech, and I want to just get things out of their way. I want to be an obstacle remover for them. And then they'll feel amazing. And they'll be like, oh, look what we are building. Not what I'm being told to do and building for the leader. And that's how you really get a true engaged culture that cares. And the thing about MSPs now is it's not a tech business. Honestly, we do tech as a byproduct. It's a service business.
Yeah.
And if you're not providing great service, there's another MSP out there that is, and they're going to take your business. And they're going to charge more. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I went and quoted people, I'd go into the room and I'd say, our quote will be the most expensive you'll see. And here's why, X, Y, Z, and meet our team, talk to all our clients, get testimonials, and see the difference.
Yeah, I mean, when I was running my MSP, my mantra then, and maybe, I wasn't the first to say it, probably wasn't the first to say it, and I know I've seen it since, but it was always a concept of take care of my people, and my people will take care of my customers. Right. And that was all the way through, from the perks, from the, empowerment, from what we gave people, how we treated them, how we respected them. As a leader, you're not on the front lines all the time. And I do implore every single business leader to have conversations with every client on a regular basis and to have touch points and connection there. But the reality is, you're not front and center. You don't see what's going on every day. You don't experience what everybody's asking every day. And your greatest opportunities for innovation and even streamlining operations, to full circle back to where we started this chapter, is getting that feedback from them. What is it that they're doing all the time? What is it that the customers are saying to them all the time? Yeah. How are things going? You have the famous 2 Olive story from the airline that It was a flight attendant that realized we're throwing out all these olives because nobody's eating them. Let's stop putting olives in the salads.
Yeah.
And however many millions that saved across, the entire, flight schedule and itinerary of the airline, it's the same thing, right?
And the thing too is once you kind of create this culture and mindset in your company that you're open to change, you're open to simplify, your default is to simplify things, people are more likely to bring you like ideas and say, hey, I think we don't need to do this. Or like, that's the most important question. What should we stop doing? I think it's more important than what should we do better. It's more important than what should we keep doing. Because you already know what you should keep doing. Your clients will tell you that. What you should stop doing actually takes time to figure out, right? Because that's all internal. And honestly, look at it with a simplifying view. Look at the data. Figure out, are we just losing money just to be perfect here? And then also look at it with a client mindset, right? I think a lot of people have a hard time viewing their own service from their client's eyes.
Yeah.
And saying like, how does this actually appear to them, right? My client doesn't give a shit what is in my bundle.
Yeah.
And techs still sell, we have 12 things in our bundle and they've only got 10.
Yeah.
That's why we're better. The client doesn't care. No client cares.
Yeah.
Sometimes even co-managed clients don't care.
Yeah.
They're just like, I want to hire you and check my security box.
Right.
Right. Like, so really figure out what the client cares about. And for SMBs, it's not your stack.
No.
Right. It's, obviously compliance is maybe a different ballpark. But the majority don't need compliance.
Yeah.
The majority just need a good security stack, right?
Well, and I wrap up on that point too with you have so many MSPs that hyper fixate on the tech and the features and everything of every vendor solution out there. It doesn't matter if it's something they use internally, if it's something they're reselling to their end customers, they hyper fixate on that. But when you look back in time in our industry at the most successful software and tech vendors in our space that have been there, it has seldom been, not always, but it has seldom been that it's the best technology that wins. It's the group that provided the best partner program, the best experience, the best enablement, and the best service to their channel partners and to the MSPs that has won, right? Take that now as an MSP, look at your business and say, why have I hyper fixated so much on the best technology or the perfect stack, where that just, like you said, checks boxes of, does it do X, Y, and Z for me as a business? Yes. Now it's all about that service on top. Yeah. And oftentimes, and I always told my techs back at Excel, you don't have to be the smartest, most technical, best tech in the world. You just have to communicate well to the clients. Let them know what's happening. Let them know that they've not been forgotten.
Yeah, communicate that you care, right?
Yeah.
That's key. I think the other thing too is like, we could probably both think of a company that has the full stack and the technology is pretty good. Some of their technology is the best, but people are fleeing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to that relationship and
culture, show you care. It's not about the tech.
Yeah. So I think, to wrap this whole section up, the perfect thing out of this to me when it comes to, your advice on a sustainable, efficient, effective operation, the best statement to me was, what should we stop doing? Whether it's the way you're approaching something you're offering, or something you do regularly, that definitely should just stop.
100%. And, even if stopping it makes you bill less, that might make you more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Cool. So scaling an MSP, scaling any business is a challenge and can present very unique challenges. Let's talk a little bit about some of those obstacles that an MSP faces as they scale their business, and weave in some of your own advice and experiences of what you did to overcome some of those experiences. For reference to the viewers again, Shawn founded an MSP, grew it to several million in revenue, exited that to a business that I'm guessing was probably 5x that size, and got into the operations there and leadership side there. And then that business within a few years was acquired by a business with tens of thousands of employees in total, but again, tons of employees on the MSP side, tons of clients, and just vast scale. So, I think you are probably one of the best fit people to talk through all these obstacles of scale.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was a journey, honestly. Because to scale your company, you got to fix all the problems you've created along the way.
And people like hiding from problems.
And if you hide from them, then you don't scale, right?
Yeah.
You just, you get held back by them. And those problems can be bad clients, right? We fired lots of bad clients, a couple, maybe half a dozen. Some were like, yep, this makes sense. Some were angry at us. I'm like, why? We both know this isn't working. So you just got to do the hard things. You have to be disciplined too. You need to figure out the client that you serve best, right? And it can't be the like 10 to 500 SMB, any industry. Like, that's not ICP.
Yeah.
That's basically the industry.
Yeah.
Right. For MSPs. So really figure out who you're really great at serving. And it's not just about marketing, because it's back to operations. If you can be like, we are really good at serving engineering firms between 10 and 150, and we're the best at that, better than anybody, and we can do it and make more money at it, and our people know the software better, you can provide a better service, you can be more profitable, and then you can scale.
Yeah.
And then you become known in that industry, right? We've seen a big, in the US at least, I've seen a big growth of MSP niches, and maybe because there's healthcare down there that helps, but it's coming. I think that's the next wave of MSPs, is you're going to have the MSP who just does restaurants, the MSP who just does law firms, the poor MSP who just does dentists. All these clients that they're just really good at, and they find a way to make money. And so that's number two. You have to be disciplined to that. You can't stray outside. If you know you're really good at one thing and then this big deal comes in and it's not that thing, you have to be able to say no. And part of that is, you can get creative. You can find a partner, and that partner might be another MSP that's really good at that.
Yeah. And
you can say, hey, why don't we work a deal out, right? And everybody wins. So I'm not saying give the business away fully. Make a little bit off of it. I'm a capitalist, but let's be realistic. Once you have that dialed down, you can get really standardized, right? And scaling is definitely, you have to be standardized. If you've got a mix mash of everything and people get to pick apart your bundle based on what they feel like that day, you're never going to scale. Good luck. You might as well just close shop and start again.
Yeah.
Because that's all that mess you got to go clean up again, right? So we were really good at standardizing, to the point where actually it cost us money. We would put things in our stack and not even tell the customer and not bill them more.
Yeah.
Every year we might be like, hey, your bill went up 3% this year. And again, discipline, you have to be able to go to the client and say, we're increasing our price a little bit this year because everything is going up every year, because never mind the inflation of the last few years. Inflation is persistent.
Yeah.
Even if it's a good number. If it's 2%, 3%, great. It's still going to be there. So you need to, as a business, do that. Because if you don't raise your prices for 5 years and inflation is 2%, that's more than 10% because it compounds.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician. But that's, call it 12, 13%. The average MSP's margin is nothing. A good MSP's margin is 10 to 15.
Yeah.
So if you don't raise your price for 5 years, now you're not profitable.
Yeah.
And then you start losing money. And then now you're desperate. You have to go to your clients and do 10%. So discipline, standardization, figuring out your ICP. Those are 3 key things. And then the fourth one, which is a big one, and it's not number 4 because it's not big, is people.
Yeah. I have a whole bunch of notes in my head, and I feel like I'm, in one of those memes with all these things flying around me right now. But you hit on a lot of really great stuff, right? The first is a common saying in the business world is niche down, right? You look at why a lot of companies in the channel, again, on the vendor side, are so successful, and you see this growth, and MSPs hear about, oh wow, they raised a $5 million Series A, and then they raised a $20 million Series B, and then a $100 million Series C. You look at the Nerdios and the Huntresses and Roost and Datto back in the day and everything else, and you wonder why is that? Well, guess what? They niched down hard.
Yeah.
All that they focused on as a customer was MSP, right? And they focused on that. So as an MSP, what can you learn from that? Let me choose a vertical that, like you said, I can specialize in, tailor my services, my talk track, and train my technical service delivery team on, and I can niche down on that and be very successful. The next thing that, all these thoughts keep flying through my head is you talked about pricing at scale for things, right? Is the reality is the bigger your business gets, the more expensive it gets to run. Yes, you get some quantities of scale and where you get cheaper volume pricing on certain things and you can consolidate certain things and whatnot. But the reality is more customers means more people supporting them. More people supporting them and more customers means more people in the back office doing things that are not revenue generating to support your business, which can often mean, more space if you're a physical office space type company, or more storage room for inventory if you do HAS or things of that nature. And all these costs go up. Again, as an MSP, you read it in the Reddit forum all the time in the subreddit about this vendor just increased my pricing by 5%, 10%, 15%. What the heck, blah, 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 blah. Well, the vendor's prices is all going up on things too, for the cost of delivery, the cost to sponsor events to reach you, the cost to develop resources for you, the tools to enable your partner programs and your partner portals and your, co-marketing stuff. That all costs more money, but their costs are going up because they're scaling and being successful. So yeah, they pass some of that down to the MSP, but this is where the MSP needs to keep up with inflation. You said 2% inflation? That's very generous, sir.
Yeah, back in the good days.
Let's be real. You're looking at 5 to almost 10% a year the last couple of years, and it is becoming a problem. But as an MSP, you need to be dealing with that. When you go to your clients with a cost of living or an inflation-based increase year after year, that is safe. You are completely safe to increase your prices on an annual basis, assuming you don't have a 2 or 3 year deal with your customers. You need to honor that stuff. But inflation is a reality, and I can guarantee you as an MSP, you are not the only supplier, partner, vendor to your clients that is going to them with those increases. And they are taking that and passing that down to their customers.
Yeah, and two things too, right? It's a bit of a check. Because if you go to your client every year and say, hey, we're going to raise your price 3% or 5%, and everybody understands the market, so they get it, right? As long as it's not unreasonable, if your service is good and what it should be in the market, the cost of change is too high. 5% is not going to push them over. It's only going to push them over if you're providing bad service. So it's if you raise it and they stay, it tells you you're doing a good job. If you raise it and they complain and they leave, either you're doing a bad job or maybe they're not a great client.
Or they just don't see the value, which can be on you or it could be on them.
For sure, yeah.
So, one of the big things you mentioned, the famous 4 that you pointed on your pinky there, was people at scale. And if you've ever had, a coffee chat with me, a mentor session, anything else, I tell everybody that if it wasn't for employees or customers, business would be simple. So easy to do, right? So let's talk again, and we're talking right now about the challenges of scale and these obstacles. Adding more staff adds a lot of obstacle and a lot of challenge at scale. So let's talk about some of those challenges in particular and how you would address those.
Yeah, I learned over the course of building my business that, if I'm going to hire 2 people at $50K a piece because I need 2, tier 1 help desk people, I learned that that's one way. Or I could hire 1 really awesome tier 3, super good culture fit, really eager person for maybe 90, maybe 100, maybe it's the same amount of money. Say it's $100,000 and it's the same dollar amount. I'm going to get more than twice out of that higher paid person. One, because they have the wisdom, so I don't need to teach them. They've already got the skills. Number 2 is they can figure out root cause problems and solve them. And that eliminates future issues. And that compounds, right? And so there's all these unintended good consequences that come from having better people in your team. And I think it's just MSP's default to hiring the tier 1 and maybe the tier 2 and micromanaging them. So we eventually just never hired tier 1s. We'd at least hire a good tier 2 who's almost tier 3.
Yeah.
And the other one that I really found impactful was when somebody calls and they talk to one of those people, the problem gets solved right away.
Yeah.
They don't have to get escalated. They don't have to wait. And they're not perfect. They don't solve it every time the first time, but they solve it quicker than a tier 1.
You mentioned a book earlier about things. So I'll mention a book that you've got me thinking about right now, which is The Multiplier. And the author is evading me right now. But it talks a lot about the power in multiplying your people. And I don't mean by adding a lot of people, by multiplying the output and potential of each individual. And on top of that, I'll circle to Steve Jobs' famous saying when Next Computers got bought by Apple because they were scared of them, was that a very small team of A players will outperform a massive team of B and C players every day of the week. And, we look at it in this current business, in my past business. In the last business, actually, we had a very large, thousands of employee organization that wanted to acquire Passportal. And when we dug into it with them as to what their motivations were, we'll talk exits later, but understanding motivations of an acquirer can help you really up the ante for your value. But it got down to the fact that as a small team, we were 25 people at Passportal, not competing with, but we'll say business, comparison to this business with 2,000 to 3,000 employees. Month over month, we were outperforming them for the number of new customers we were bringing on, from our customer retention, and from our overall, revenue growth and net revenue growth. When you look at those at scale, right? And they said why, and that they wanted to get that secret sauce. They thought we would be the answer to doing that for them at scale. And my response to them was simple. I said, you don't have to buy us to get that. The simple thing is, I have a team of A players. Sorry if this hurts your feelings, but you do not. Right? And it's the same thing here now. We're a smaller, lean team, 14, 15 people right now, and we are outrunning and outpacing companies with hundreds of employees because we have a team of A players.
The thing is, with small size, you can move quicker too. So not only do you have better people, you can move faster. There's less red tape. The one thing, actually, the company that acquired us, they brought us on board and said, you keep doing what you're doing. Like, we don't want to touch it. We don't want to break it. Keep doing what you're doing. And they left us alone for about 1.5 years. And that was awesome. And I credit them for that. And I think there are other MSP roll-up companies that are doing the same thing. They're buying and leaving. So keep doing what you're doing. We don't want to break it.
There's a bunch of them. I mean, the first one that comes to mind, New Charter Technology. They acquire a company, but it's still XYZ IT Services, a New Charter company. And it is such a brilliant way to operate and scale. The only other thing that I'll say that is really evident in our conversation right now is scale doesn't mean building an empire, having tons of employees and growing your employee count by 100% year over year, 500%, and all of that stuff. It's a quantity of scale that comes in with the number of customers you can support, the number of end users you're supporting, and overall what your revenue and profit is doing. And you don't always need a ton of employees. You don't have to double your employee count if you have the right people doing the right things to double your revenue.
And honestly, doubling your revenue isn't the only thing you should be worried about. We're a $5 million company at 23% EBITDA. That's top of the charts for MSP. We made more money than a company 10 times our size.
Absolutely.
I mean, our value is maybe less. Like, there's the argument, revenue equals value, and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're a small MSP owner and you just want to, make a good nest egg and build something that'll support you and your team and help everyone grow, and you're not looking for to change the world, then you probably don't care about revenue value.
Well, and if you want to look at the power of efficiency at scale and whatnot, with the crazy advancements in AI and whatnot, I was watching a podcast with Sam Altman recently, and I can't remember the name of the company he was referring to, but there was recently an AI-enabled and empowered business, SaaS company, 10 employees, did a fundraise at $1 billion valuation. And he says now, and granted it's Sam Altman and Mr. OpenAI and everything else, but he believes in the next 10 years, we will see a one-person billion-dollar company because of the power of technology, because of the power of that. Now, if that's not scale of what you're able to deliver, what you're able to do, the revenue you can generate, and the value of your business, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it's crazy. I always say, I've said to a few people lately, I'm like, if I started another MSP, when we got to 5 million, we'd be half the amount of people we were. Yeah. So we were 23 people, 5 million. That math is sort of normal. Everyone's used to that. We'd be 10 to 12.
Yeah.
5 million.
Yeah.
And to be people having a lot of fun, clients loving it, like that's just how the world is now.
Yeah.
And you have to be.
Oh, absolutely. You have to adapt. And if there's one thing that you'd think MSPs will have learned over the last even 10 years, 20 years, it's a constant state of evolution. You are in technology. Technology moves faster than any other industry in the world.
Yeah, our rule for our stack was we're going to pick a tool and we're going to try to keep it for 2 years.
Yeah.
If we can keep it for 2 years, we did great. But we're going to plan and we're going to have resources to replace it because we know it will get replaced in 2 years.
Yeah.
Even if it's the best tool out there, the best MDR, the best email filtering, like all these things that used to have a vendor, now Microsoft just does it and you're like, well, it's in premium, might as well just go with that.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to do the change. And you're not going to go charge your customer to remove a tool from your stack.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to build in resource budget to change.
Yeah.
Right. And most MSPs don't have resource budget to take a 15-minute break.
No, absolutely. and to your point there, other solutions are advancing, other solutions are coming on the market and everything else. If you look at, I actually just saw yesterday or the day before an announcement from a popular vendor in our space that just released a new integration and a new feature. And I won't get into exactly what it was, but the second I read it, I went to another company in the channel, a software company that I believed did similar things, and looked. And essentially what they did was that integration was their product.
Oh.
Now, if I look at it, this is now included with this other company, whether I'm using them already or not. Now I look at it, when we talk about, operating at scale, the more you can consolidate, the better you're going to be. I am going to look at that as an MSP and say, do I need to be spending the $200, $300, $400, $500 a month on that service now and this other product that I'm already using, when I can turn on this feature in this product, or if I'm not using that one, switch to that, and now I just consolidated dealing with two vendors and my cost point,
and
to make a massive change.
Managing two things, right?
Yeah.
There's all those other complexities. So again, simplifying, and if it does as good of a job,
yeah.
Right?
So one of the other things that you mentioned, at the very beginning of this portion about scaling was standardization. And I mean, I remember sitting in very small classroom type feel things with Gary Pica up front and, Paul Dipple and even Arnie Bellini when he was still the guy doing the presentations, talking standardization across everything.
Yeah.
If you choose a firewall, that's the firewall that every end customer should be using.
Yeah.
If you choose an email security solution, that's what everybody should be using. Stuff like that. It's so interesting, and we're seeing it more and more now that we've launched Stat Tracker at Gradient here. When we connect out to all of these different products and the system categorizes everything and is tracking things for the MSP, our pilot partner that we brought on to look at this, so $10 million-ish MSP, not a small business by any means, but the second that we did some grouping and we grouped by category, we were immediately reminded of the sentiment in the industry that the average MSP is running 5 to 6 backup solutions across their clients. And this was exactly it. They had 5 direct backup solutions, and then they had one more that they were getting through distribution. They had 6 different. And within about 6 seconds, we were able to sort things, find the highest profit margin one, and they looked at, without even negotiating anything, they had over $2,000 in monthly profit gain on their volume of backup to move it.
Yeah.
But of course, they called that most profitable vendor up and just said, hey, if I, whatever it was, 10x my volume with you guys tomorrow, what are you going to do for me here?
Yeah. What else?
And that's another area where standardizing. Now, not only did they gain, I think they landed somewhere close to $4,000 monthly profit just from standardizing that and consolidating, but Their technicians no longer needed to be trained and know how to use all of those 4 or 5 other solutions.
Yeah.
They didn't need to be logging into IT Glue or Hoodoo or whatever documentation system they use to look up
which one is it?
What do they use for backup, how do they do it, find the passwords, log in, familiarize myself with it. You look at all of that time savings to the technicians to, again, focus and standardize on one single product.
Yeah, and imagine a restore, like, oh my God, like, do you have 6 different incident response plans for each of those solutions? You would need to, right?
Well, and different retention policies and everything in between.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, and I think just, again, simplifying, and I bet you that whole patchwork came together because they just didn't have the time. They just brought it in, didn't have time, just kept it going. Okay, that's good enough. You didn't go back. You gotta get that up to standard, right? So you're bringing lots of new business in, and that's great, but then you need to standardize it like sooner than later.
Yeah,
because the longer you leave it, it compounds again.
Well, it is a compounding effect, and I find that, in business, there's things that you just need to do regularly, and you forget to do it, right? Because you get so caught up in the busyness and everything that's going on. But even a simple quarterly reminder in your calendar that says, look at, review staff, right? Review, vendors, review this, review that. It's all of these types of things that forces you to take pause, look into them, and go. Because if you are growing quickly and seeing great success, those things get lost, and those can be your 2 olives. Those can be your 2 minutes a day times 10, whatever else, right? That really has that compounding effect on your business.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, in a small business, the little things matter, right? They can mean you get to hire somebody 3 months early, or not, right? And then that compounds, and it gets you that extra time to do that extra work. So the more proactive you are, right? We sell proactivity as security, but then internally, a lot of MSPs aren't.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, you gotta look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, we need to do our own thing, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that we're on it.
There's the old saying that the cobbler's kids have the worst shoes, right?
Exactly.
It's I always said the MSPs have the worst IT systems for longest time, because it was just, let's focus on the clients, right?
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to talk about in this section at scale is a lot of MSPs and even smaller ones will look at a business of the next level, right? They'll look at a $2 to $3 million business. They'll look at a $5 million MSP, a $10 million MSP, and they'll have this, assumption in their head that my life gets easier when I'm there, and I will know so much more, and things will just be figured out. And, we were talking before we even started recording about what the reality is in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, you really have to figure out what your vision is, right? You need to, like, your biggest role, I would say, other than getting obstacles out of your people's way, is to figure out where you're going and try to figure out that as far out as you can with as much accuracy as you can. And that might be 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's good enough, right? In a lot of cases, 2 years is about as far away as you can guess.
Yeah.
Just think about 2019, you're guessing 2 years out. And
right.
Kaboom. So I think, and that's really key, because then you can say, okay, when we get there, what will we need to have in place?
Mm-hmm.
We will need to have everything standardized. We will need to have these processes nailed down. We will need to have this team. We'll need to add this role that we don't currently have. Me as a leader will need to stop doing these things and have someone to do them.
Yeah.
Right? Because every entrepreneur, doesn't matter what business you're in, you eventually want to do less and less. And you just want to be that leader.
Yeah.
And be there to come in and help and guide and create that vision. Like the EOS framework, it's like a business framework. They talk about integrator and visionary. And so eventually, if you're at 10 million, you're going to want to have an operations person.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to want to be in the day-to-day. And if you are, you're doing your business a horrible disservice.
Yeah.
Right? You're just in the weeds. You're not focused on the next couple of years. And the thing is, I find that a lot of tech people, and myself included, I had to figure this out for myself, is I really enjoyed the work, the tech, and I felt like I made a difference, and I was like productive, and it felt just good, right? And I liked it, right?
Yeah.
But then I realized if I was doing that and ignoring the vision, I was actually like hurting the whole team, because that vision will catch up to you if you like it or not.
Yeah.
If you plan for it or not. And if I hadn't planned 6 months out for XYZ to happen, and we got there, now the team is in chaos. They're too busy. We don't have our standardization figured out. Our financials are a mess. Like all these things just start to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so back to discipline. As a leader, you need to constantly be like, what can I stop doing now?
Yeah.
Because I'm no expert at marketing. I'm no expert at sales. I'm no expert at bookkeeping. I did invoicing until we were like 3 million, which is insane. Looking back, I'm like, you stupid idiot.
Yeah.
You know, like these are things that MSPs can't let go of.
Yeah.
Like, the owner, the founder. And it's like, you need to. And if you don't, you won't grow.
Well, it's the truth, and to normalize it for everybody in the room and everybody behind their keyboards watching this is I remember always saying, oh, I just need to make this next hire, and my life's going to be easier. I need to hire this one, my life's going to be easier. And that is one, it's the wrong approach, because your life doesn't get easier. You're just doing one less thing so that you can focus on something else.
Yep.
Right? But the other thing is they think that at a next scale or the next business that you'll have it all figured out, or that it gets easier. And having gone from, running businesses with 10 employees to 20 to 50 to 100 to 1,000 now, in my history, at any stage, it doesn't get any easier, right? You just have a different set of problems to deal with.
Yeah, you got better problems.
And no matter what you see, no matter what you read, no matter what anybody else tells you, nobody has it figured out.
No.
Right?
Yeah, we're all just flying by the seat of our pants.
Everybody is flying by the seat of their pants because everybody is dealing with something new at their level, at their tier, at their scale, milestone that they've never dealt with before.
Yeah, and as simple as like I was teaching a group of entrepreneurs. I'm part of EO, and I coach through that some people that are like $250,000 to $1 million companies, and this one person was just so upset about an issue that came up and a problem that came up in their business, and I was like, look, like you need to get better at being okay with problems. You can't let them like upset you. You have to just roll with the punches, and you got to be like, okay, problem. Spend 5% looking at it, and then 95% of the time after that solving it. And if you can't do that, then you're just going to be miserable. You're going to be focused on the problem and not on the solution. Yeah. And that's the thing is like you just, as your business scales, you just get more problems, and they just become better problems, and hopefully. And you just, and the other thing too is you can also delegate your problems. Yeah. You can say, no, this is your accountability. Yeah. This is your problem. Let me know how I can empower you to solve it.
Yeah. Well, and there's one of the social media influencers, but a very, very successful individual that has this sentiment, and I've started doing it too, is that every time an employee would come to them and say, we have a problem, his response,
I love this trick.
Great.
Yeah.
Why? Because every problem is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to improve. It's an opportunity to innovate. And it means that it's a problem for other people at some point in their journey that you can maybe capitalize on as well. And so, yeah, if you can't look at problems through a different lens and perspective of seeing every problem as an opportunity, not a bullshit situation that I have to deal with, and why me, and why can't anything go right? It's an opportunity.
Yeah, the MSP that's like 5 million and they're like, I want to be 20. Every problem between 5 and 20, that $20 million MSP out there is figured it out. Yeah. One way or another. The other thing that I like, kind of further to your experience there on the problems or opportunities, is that when somebody brings me a problem, a lot of people just jump to like helping solve it. And I've had to be like, it's not my job to help to solve it for you. And so I've actually started to default with, what do you think I would do? Yeah. I asked that. And it's funny, it's this weird psychological trick, and there's lots of research around it. people start to actually think about things like I would think about them.
Yeah.
And if you're working with your team after years, they know how you think about things.
Yeah.
And the other thing about human psychology is that we're lazy.
Yeah.
So if I know somebody on my team has the answer, I'm just going, hey, do you know the answer to this problem? Yeah. Yes. But like every time, if you're the leader, that just is going to distract you. And so as soon as you start to say, what do you think I would do?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I think you might do this, and this is why.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I would do. And now look, the person is empowered.
Yeah.
You've taught them that their brain works right.
Yeah.
Like their way to figure out that problem is correct, and then they just feel more confident.
It improves their own confidence. You said it there, right? And getting to that idea or feeling or sentiment where don't bring me a problem unless you already have at least one recommended solution for it, right? And it may not be the right one, but at least you've taken that step to come up with some sort of solution to bring it.
Yeah,
excellent.
100%.
This has been an amazing conversation, talking about just a wealth of topics from operations and scale and everything else. And I think the perfect way to put a bow on this whole conversation is most MSPs, most business owners are looking to clean up and make their operations more effective and efficient and scale their businesses to a point of eventual exit. Some form of liquidity event, an opportunity to capitalize on the fruits of their labor and sacrifice and everything that they've put in. So when it comes to realizing a successful exit, there's a lot that goes into formulating and setting yourself up for success. So obviously you've had and experienced successful exits in the past, and I've got my own, but let's talk a little bit through about what you did to set yourself up for a successful eventual exit, and what you think were the key factors that ultimately contributed to that coming to fruition.
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't do it perfectly. Looking back, there's a few things I would tweak. And I think one realization everybody needs to have is that you're going to exit your business. You will. Whether it's by death or whether it's by sale, or you just go out of business one way or another, right? You're going to exit. So you need to plan for this. If you're not, you're probably doing your team a disservice, you're doing your family a disservice, you're doing yourself a disservice. So beginning with that, so you need to do this work. You need to rely on your professionals, and you need to also assume that they don't really know how successful you might be. Yeah. So when you're starting your business, or if you're early days, you're $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, you need to do tax planning, right? You need to go to your accountant and say, look, this is going to probably sell for a couple million or more, hopefully 10, hopefully 20. Awesome. With that context, they can actually give you the proper advice, right? So they can say, oh, you need a holdco, or you need a trust, or you need whatever mechanism so that you can eventually take advantage of all the tax things out there for you. So do that. I didn't have a family trust, shoot myself in the foot, paid way more tax than I should have.
Yeah.
I had a holdco, so that helped, but it wasn't the perfect scenario. So go and do that. And, a trust, everyone's like, oh, it's so expensive. And no, it makes you a lot of money later.
Yeah.
So like you need to have that vision.
Yeah.
So if you start there, and then the other thing you need to do is that you really need to, again, have that vision of like, what does an exit look like for me? Do I want to stay on with the acquirer? Do I want to wait until I'm kind of done working to exit? Do I want to leave and pursue another passion? Do I want to have like a partial ownership in the next company and continue their vision because it aligns so well with mine? You really need to figure out what that looks like, because that's super important. The other exit, there's lots of companies doing employee buyouts. Mm-hmm. In Canada, they've started to introduce the employee trust.
Yeah.
So you can transfer ownership of the company into an employee trust. And that's actually been in the UK for ages. Yeah. And it's a good way to transition assets, company assets, and save tax, not trigger gains. So that's the other thing too, is a lot of people overlook, like, your employees could take over if you set it up properly and train them properly and get the right people in place for success. So there's tons of different ways to exit. Everybody just thinks, oh, the obvious one's acquisition. Yeah, that's obvious. That's easy, right? And I think that's important. There's another book I love, Built to Sell, and it talks about how to productize your business, how to streamline it, how to simplify it, and really there's obviously value in having good EBITDA. Banks love it. There's obviously good value in growing your revenue. But there's all this other value around having a product that's easy to buy, having a raving fan base, having really happy employees. That's all very important. And the thing too is, depends how you exit, you really need to factor in your people. You need to say, well, how are these people going to get taken care of on the other side of this? Is there something in it for them? Like, when we announce this acquisition, how do we make them care in a good way, right? They're going to care. But if you don't want them to be angry. And so that's really important. I think the other thing too is, again, as you mature as an MSP, you really need to dial in your financial forecasts. The thing is, like, business owners, there's so much on your plate. And if you're bad at delegating, you can't focus on the things that you need to focus on, like financials, like vision, and you're focused on operations still. And so you need to get to the point where you can start to focus on your financials. And again, bring in professionals to help you forecast. There's lots of tools out there like MSP CFO. You plug into your PSA, it tells you some numbers. Awesome, but do you understand those numbers? Do you understand how the buyer looks at those numbers? That's where you need the person, the professional, to come and help you learn that. And it's your responsibility as the owner to learn that. And if you don't, then you'll be stuck. You won't scale.
I'll hit some things, maybe in reverse order, maybe not in any order. But first thing you said was engage professionals. As MSPs, you have established a business that is a professional service organization that you sell to tell people, we specialize in IT. We are the professionals about technology. You should outsource that to us and not limit your own business potential and your own everything in your business by trying to do it yourselves. Yet, so many MSP owners I talk to don't hire accounting firm professionals and tax advisors. They don't talk to investment bankers. They don't talk to bankers, right?
They don't even hire good bookkeepers most of the
time. That's the challenge here, right? Is a little bit about practice what you preach, right? And do that, because it is worth it in spades. Much like as an MSP, you believe in the absolute value and the intrinsic and intangible connections of things that you do as an MSP for a business. It's the same thing that all of these other types of professionals can do for your business. And so I think that's important. I'm going to go to, when it comes to valuation, let's be real. As an MSP, you're going to be valued by a multiplier of your EBITDA, right? In most cases is what you're going to run with. Now, if you've got those two levers, right? It's my EBITDA and it's my multiplier. Well, on one hand, I better have a very well-run organization to make sure I've maximized my EBITDA, because that's going to drive me value. It's also going to put more money in your pocket as an owner, through dividends or whatever else, your tax planning stuff at the end of every year. And gives you even more money to invest more in growth. So you want a strong EBITDA. That comes with having a proper accounting group and tax firm that is working your books properly.
They're accruing for things. They're holding inventory.
Absolutely. How you structure that, how you report it, all matters, because at the end of the day, when somebody's acquiring you and going through due diligence, one, they're going to want audited financials in most cases if you're a business of merit and even millions in revenue. But two, you can't come last minute and say, well, I paid myself $300,000 last year, and that's not something that would continue, so I need you to take $200,000 off, right? Pay yourself a proper salary, dividend yourself out the rest if that's what you need to do. and to make the money that you're going to make, right? And do things of that nature so the business and the books are done properly.
You have to learn all these things.
And is there. And you can do it with professionals, right? So that's one thing is just run a good business.
Like most businesses
in general.
under 2 million that I talk to
Yeah.
are doing cash accounting.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah.
That their accountants even let them do that.
Well, and the amount of MSPs that I'll talk to, everybody sees debt as this 4-letter word that is such a bad thing. You can't get a good relationship with a bank if you're not carrying debt.
Yeah.
They won't love you because you got tons of money in your bank account, and let's face it, cash flow issues, everything else, chances are you don't have a ton of money in the bank account, right? Banks make money off of debt. And yes, there's a cost that comes with debt. But if you see it as an investment lever for you and a way to improve your relationship with your bank, there's a lot more you can do as a business with that available to you, and a whole wealth of opportunities there. When we talk about, so there's the EBITDA lever and just running a good business and having things done properly and with things. The other is
just one note on debt. There's value in having a company that has proven debt in place.
Yeah.
Because the company buying you knows that they can leverage you to borrow more.
Well, yeah.
They can leverage you to borrow the money to buy you.
Yeah. And you can see the unit economics of how things flow, of the amount of money and capital invested to deliver X dollars in revenue growth, which we kind of talked about in one of our previous Fireside Chats recently as well. The next thing is the multiplier on it. Yeah. Generally, it's about, do you have a special intellectual property? Do you have a special service you offer? Are you a unique geography, a vertical that you focus, niche down, or I'll say the rate of growth. And so when you look at things like debt, when you look at things like capital, books run properly, taking some sacrifice, maybe not just padding your pockets so you can take 30 vacations a year, or if you do, some people might laugh at that, but maybe drive the super extravagant car, whatever it is. If you're reinvesting back in that business, if you're leveraging debt properly to grow your business, that's going to improve the value at the end of the day that you get.
Speaking of cars,
yeah.
So here's the funny thing, is that you're running a business, you're 4 million, you're making 20% plus EBITDA, and you go buy yourself a supercar.
Yeah.
What do you think the next thing that's going to happen?
Depreciation?
No. Your employees are going to ask for raises.
Yeah.
You need to plan for these things.
Absolutely.
Like, as a business owner, you have to realize the optics of everything you do.
Every single thing you do. And I think
so if you're going to buy a supercar, do it right before raises.
Yeah. Or do it right after raises.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I think it's interesting you mentioned the optics thing, right? And you have the optics, but we've talked already in this Fireside Chat about employee empowerment and employee engagement and the impact on your business of that. Because yes, when I sell a company, if I don't have highly engaged employees and my clients aren't stuck to us too, I'm going to be representing a warranty, reps and warranties, that we're going to keep a certain amount of those, because at the end of the day, that's what people are acquiring. But with a vehicle and with well-run businesses, you can lease them as a company, and that's a business write-off.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's ways that you can pad things. But, in my MSP, we actually bought our management team or leased our management team nice luxury vehicles, so that there was this optic. One, people wanted to grow up with the company because, hey, I want to be driving a BMW, a Lexus, a nice vehicle like that, Mercedes, whatever it was. We got the write-off. They essentially had a better compensation package. Yeah. They were very engaged and very tied to the company. And then even the external optics to our clients, you mentioned earlier in our chat that one of the first things you would say to clients or prospective clients before you give them a proposal is, we are probably going to be the most expensive quote that you get.
Yeah.
Well, when they see you show up in a Mercedes, a BMW or Lexus, or any of your staff doing that, you might think, oh, these people make too much money. No, that's the sign of a successful business.
They're going to stay
in business that's doing well.
They're going to be around.
And probably, has done a few things right. So
I'm not going to go hire a wealth manager that drives a 1982 Honda Civic.
No, absolutely not.
Not going to happen. I think the other thing too is that these financial professionals, if you learn from them, you learn the tricks.
Yeah.
And in finance, there's so many tricks, so many ways to look at things, so many different perspectives from the bank, from the buyer, and you need to learn those.
Yeah.
Because they're super powerful. And the tax tricks too, right? And the thing is that all creates so much value.
Yeah.
That you're almost negligent if you don't.
Yeah.
And you can't just be like, I've got a tax guy, he's going to take care of it. No, you need to learn it as the owner. You need to understand these things. You need to know what to tell your accountant to accrue.
Yeah.
You need to know, oh yeah, that customer paid us for 3 months instead of 1. And so, we don't want this month to look really good and the next 2 to look horrible.
Yeah.
You need to spread that revenue out, so you need to really understand how accrual accounting works.
Absolutely. You want a smooth line.
Yeah.
You don't want lumpy stuff, because with every lump is a story you have to deliver, and it could be a story they don't believe, or that wanes their own confidence.
Back to the EBITDA multiple too.
Yeah.
It's like, I know 100% disagree. EBITDA matters, 100%.
Oh yeah.
But there's 2 parts of a deal. There's the price, and there's the terms. And the terms are almost just as important as the price, right? Because for a lot of deals are factored. Like, you get cash up front. Everyone wants a bit of cash up front. Great. But then there's typically an earn-out period, because they want to know that the transition period's going to go nice. And fair enough. They deserve that, right? And that earn-out period is generally based on your forecasted growth.
Yeah.
Right? And so what we did is we actually, and here's the other thing too, is you need to be prepared for a sale. We had our forecasts all done. So when the buyer said, hey, could you send us a PDF of your forecast? 10 minutes later, they had that PDF.
Yeah.
So not only did we not have to scramble, they got so much confidence that email got fired right back.
Yeah.
Boom. It's already done. They've already had it in place.
Yeah.
It's not just something they just spun up.
No.
And so it gives them confidence, and which increases your value.
Absolutely.
Right? You get more power on the negotiation side of it. And so what we did was that with our earnout, it was a 2-year, and we based it on our forecasts, and it was great. And our forecasts were like achievable but a stretch.
Yeah.
I think we hit them like 93% over the 2-year average. And we sold January 2020, right before COVID.
Yeah.
And we still almost hit them. And I'm actually really happy we didn't hit them, because if we did, I would have left money on the table. So I'm like, I'm glad we didn't like 120% them.
Yeah.
Because then I gave away 20%.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, and I think, and there's so many terms in a SPA, share purchase agreement, that can make or lose you hundreds of thousands of dollars after the close, right?
Yeah.
And they can be when the payment happens. Or, the fact that your payment date is December 31st or January, depending on your fiscal year end and how your ownership structure is done, can mean you get to defer tax for 11 months or not. And you can keep that $500,000 tax bill invested and making 9% for a year or not.
Yeah.
And you could do math, that's a lot of money.
Oh yeah. No,
right?
absolutely.
So like these tiny 1-day difference things matter.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, it's good to have this well-run business. It's good to know that, like you said, there's a multitude of exit potentials, whether it's an exit, a sale, you're leaving the daily operations, you have a succession plan, transition of ownership, on and on and on, or some untimely demise that happens, right? Yep. Let's talk a little bit through almost the strategic approach or the strategy that comes into how to sell a company, right? Because let's face it, the best businesses are bought, not sold. Yep. And you don't always get to choose the time that you're selling, because if you do, if you're the one going to market to sell your company, you're taking a hefty discount, right? So let's talk through a little bit about the strategy of what to do and how to approach things to increase the probability of people coming in at the right time with the desire and them asking to buy your business.
Plant seeds. So the number one thing I did, and the MSP industry is kind of funny. I think there's probably 3 kinds of MSPs out there. There's the ones that like to meet other competitors and say, hey, you guys look like you're doing a good job. Let's be friends. You guys look like you're trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes. I'm not going to associate. And then there's the second type of MSPs that just mind their own business and don't talk to anybody. And then there's the third one where they're like, everyone else is an enemy, right? And so we were kind of the first one. We want to associate ourselves with good people in the industry, and we're like, hey, let's just help each other. We'll raise the ships, and we're not in each other's geographies. Maybe sometimes we were. I actually threw a client party and invited Calgary MSPs to come and join and have fun. Because I'm like, good luck, talk to my clients, have fun. They're not going to go to you.
Yeah.
They love me too much. You have that confidence. And so you build these relationships, and that's planting seeds. And one of those seeds was the company that bought us. It was like 5 years before they bought us. I was like, hey, I'm in your city. Let's get a beer. We got a beer. Kept in touch. I'm like, oh, how are you doing this? Oh, we do it this way. Oh, cool. Thanks. How do you do this? Oh, we do that. Awesome. And we learn from each other. We got lots of cool ideas. So we saved each other time, made each other more money probably.
Yeah.
Right? Did better job for our clients. So everyone won. And then they came to us and said, hey, we think we might be ready to acquire a company in Calgary. And I said, okay, let's chat. And they're like, how about we come out for dinner? I'm like, sounds good. So from there, it was just like, okay, I had to know, like, what's my number?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, if this goes horribly wrong, what's my minimum number I need to just not worry about it after? Yeah. And that is like, back to professionals, have a wealth planner, know your retirement plan, know what your burn's going to be, like figure all that out after your tax bills are paid, and then make sure that number matches.
Yeah.
And so the price in our deal, the minimum number was that number.
Yeah.
And it was like, if I quit the day after the acquisition and none of our clients stayed, that was the number I got. Period.
Yeah. It's well thought, right? And planting seeds is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I wish that there was a percentage, but in general, you look at it as an MSP, you are most likely, very high probability, to be acquired by another MSP.
Yeah.
Right? There's the odd chance, an odd time that you see, the printer and office equipment companies that are doing acquisitions, VoIP companies or telephony companies that do the acquisitions, even some ISPs, which is one that acquired the business that acquired your business.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the reality, is if you see everybody as the enemy, you have just pretty much eradicated your potential exit opportunities or target acquirers, right? Yeah. Whereas you look at the best deals that have happened, and some of the largest deals that have happened, it's been through things of, hey, they were all members of, ConnectWise Evolve peer groups, and they knew each other, and they had cooperated and collaborated on things. Or, I've seen it between peer members that, coincidentally are in the same EO group or whatever peer or executive forum that it
There's
is.
There's a level
right?
of respect, right? But, and this company that bought us, even though they were more than 5 times our size, they respected us.
Yeah.
Right? And they knew we could bring more than just the acquisition dollars to the table, the revenue to the table. And that was really empowering, and it made us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was key after the fact to keep it going well.
Yeah.
Right? The company coming in can't just feel like they're being swallowed.
Yeah.
This is going to fall apart.
So I think, to put the right ending on here when it comes to M&A or acquisitions and setting yourself up for success, I think, one, well-run organization. Just be a good business, right? Whether you're looking to sell, whether you're just looking to make money. 2, leverage and engage professionals in the right disciplines that make the most sense to help your business be a well-run business. And 3, plant the seeds. There's a great book called The Magic Box Paradigm, which I've read a number of times and has ultimately been the recipe I've followed every time I've sold a business. And it talks a lot about planting seeds, but then the value of how to approach and how to really water those seeds over time to make it and transition it into the buyer's idea and for them to see exponentially the value that your organization would bring to them. So yeah, I mean,
just like sales, it's like
Yeah.
M&A is just sales, and sales is just like dating.
Yeah, selling the value, baby.
We've all dated,
Yeah.
right? And it's like you gotta play hard to get. You gotta be like, oh, there's all these good things that you don't see, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta. It's not just about the revenue, not just about the EBITDA. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, I think, you know,
I've
that's
talked to other MSPs that have done it, you know, friendly ones that'll share their ideas. I've talked to a few, and like one person's like, oh, we're 10% EBITDA, but like we've set up all these things, we've spent all this money, in the next like 2 years we're gonna be like 18 to 20. And they're like, but this one, they're like, we want to buy you, we'll give you 7 times EBITDA, which is a great price. And I'm like, there's always gonna be a buyer.
Yeah.
I told him, I'm like, there will always be a buyer for a good MSP.
always.
And he's like, okay, I'm not selling right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be asked the right question.
It's a great time to be an MSP, so be a great one.
Be a great one.
Shawn, I absolutely loved the conversation today. You know, I'm sure everybody out, you know, watching the chat has gotten tons of nuggets of great advice and information. So thank you for coming and taking your time to share your story and give some of the advice, and having an opportunity for our viewers to, you know, learn from somebody who's blazed the path before them. So
yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And anybody wants to reach out, happy to share the war stories.
Awesome. Thank you.